Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. The dark and disgusting truth behind the glittering screen has often come to light. A few years ago, a movement called Me Too began, and it exposed many secrets. But now a 7-year-old case has resurfaced in a new form, one that had once shaken Kerala, or more specifically, the Malayalam film industry. That old case has come alive again, and currently the Malayalam film industry is facing a storm. New revelations are coming out every day. Resignations are happening daily. Big stars, directors, and other names are being dragged into it. And the reason? The dark reality hidden behind the glamorous world of the Malayalam film industry. It's all due to one report. A report that has exposed the ugly truth of the Malayalam film industry, also known as Mollywood. So, what is this report? What does it say? And why is the Malayalam film industry making headlines these days? Here is the full story from beginning to end, ever since films from every language started appearing on OTT platforms. Earlier, people barely knew which South Indian films or actors were popular. But now, just like we recognize stars from Hindi films, people in every household know the actors in movies from the South. The credit for this goes to OTT platforms, where these films are dubbed and released in Hindi. The Malayalam film industry, in particular, has grown rapidly since the arrival of OTT platforms. In this very Mollywood, an incident took place 7 years ago. It was February 17, 2017. A well-known lead actress of the Malayalam film industry was on her way to Kochi. Suddenly, in a deserted area, her car was stopped. 5 men got out of another vehicle and kidnapped this renowned actress. After that, the car roamed the streets of Kochi for 2 hours while those men assaulted her, physically abused her, and sexually harassed her inside the same vehicle. All of this was deliberately recorded on camera. After 2 hours, the car was stopped outside the house of a well-known producer from the Malayalam film industry. The actress was thrown out of the car right there. Terrified and shaken, she entered the producer's bungalow and shared everything that had happened to her. On the producer's encouragement, she gathered the courage to go to the police station and filed a report about her kidnapping, sexual assault, physical abuse, and even the video recording that was made of the entire incident. As soon as the police registered the report, the next day the news broke in the media, causing a storm in the Malayalam film industry. The incident made headlines in every newspaper across Kerala because the victim was a leading actress, a well-known heroine. The police began their investigation. This lead actress happened to recognize one of the 5 men involved in the incident, as he used to rent cars to people in the film industry. She gave his name to the police, who then arrested him and the others involved. Gradually, the investigation progressed, and attention turned to the main person who used to provide the rental cars. During interrogation, the police found a letter in his possession. The letter was handwritten by the accused, but it was being sent on behalf of a then Mollywood superstar, a well-known actor. As soon as the police read the letter, they were shocked. It revealed that the mastermind behind the entire case was none other than Malayalam film industry's superstar Dileep. After this revelation, Dileep's name was added in the fur. Dileep wasn't just a major star in Mollywood, he also owned a production house and had influence in almost every part of the film industry. He even owned his own theaters and cinema halls where films were released. It is said that he rose to fame very quickly, and now that same superstar Dileep was accused of orchestrating the kidnapping, sexual assault, and filming of a fellow actress. Eventually, the Kerala police arrested him. Dileep's arrest was major news. After the arrest, he was sent to jail, where he remained for a full 85 days before being released on bail. Meanwhile, the case dominated newspaper headlines. When the actress shared her story, people felt sympathy for her and believed that she deserved justice. But the question was, who would bring her justice? The government and others seemed to be bending over backward for Dileep, simply because he was a superstar, a powerful figure. Disappointed by the government and the police, 18 well-known women from Kerala, including some from the film industry and others from NGOs, came together and formed an organization. These 18 women named it the Women in Cinema Collective, and under this collective they launched a campaign to seek justice for the actress. Gradually, more people began to join the cause, and the media also started highlighting the issue. Public support began pouring in, and the organization started being seen as a major movement. Eventually, the government realized it was in the wrong, especially since this campaign, meant to bring justice to an actress, was something the police and government should have handled in the first place. That's when the Kerala government finally woke up and said, "If something wrong is happening in the Mollywood film industry, we will investigate it." They decided to form a committee. Following this, the Kerala government appointed a 3-member committee led by retired Kerala High Court Judge Justice Hema. The committee included retired Judge Justice Hema as its chairperson, along with 2 other members, renowned Malayalam film actress Sharada and retired IAS officer KB Valsala Kumari. So the committee consisted of Valsala Kumari, Sharada, and Justice Hema of the Kerala High Court, which is why it came to be known as the Hema Committee. In 2017, the Kerala government officially announced the formation of this committee. These 3 members began their work, and over the next 2 years the committee held in-depth conversations with more than 80 women and girls from Mollywood, the Malayalam film industry, especially focusing on those under the age of 30. At that time, nearly all the well-known actresses connected to the Mollywood film industry, basically all the key female figures, were interviewed. In total, more than 80 women were spoken to. After these extensive conversations, the Hema Committee submitted its report to the Kerala government in 2019. Once the report was submitted, there was a demand for it to be made public. People wanted the contents of the committee's findings to be released into the public domain. However, the Kerala government declined, stating that it was a matter involving privacy. The government said that the statements made by the actresses, their testimonies, could not be made public. And in this way, the report that the Hema Committee submitted in 2019, which exposed the dark side of the Malayalam film industry, was essentially buried by the government. 5 years passed. During this time, many people tried to have the report released publicly, but it didn't happen. Eventually, 2024 arrived. Some individuals, including members of the media, first submitted applications through RTI, Right to Information, and then approached the court stating that the Hema Committee's report, if there are flaws or toxic elements within the Malayalam film industry, they should be brought to light so those issues can be addressed, rather than the government suppressing them. Eventually, an order was issued, stating that the report should be made public. The report was nearly 300 pages long, specifically 296 pages. On August 19th, the government finally decided to release the Hema Committee report about Mollywood. However, even then, the government held back 55 pages from the report. They stated that these 55 pages would not be made public, because many parts of it involved issues of personal privacy. The government said those portions would not be made public, so excluding those 55 pages, the remaining 251 pages of the report were released on August 19th. And from August 20th onward, a storm hit the Malayalam film industry. The revelations in the report completely exposed the hidden truth behind Mollywood. What exactly was in this report? And what about the actress who, in 2017, was allegedly kidnapped and assaulted at the behest of superstar Dileep? What was her story, and how was it connected to the report? In fact, that actress had worked with Dileep in many films. Everything was going fine. Dileep had gotten married in 1998 to a well-known Malayalam actress named Manju Warrior. Their married life seemed stable, and they had a daughter together. But by 2015, their relationship began to fall apart. The reason was that another actress had entered Dileep's life, and he had started dating her. That actress was Kavya Madhavan. In 2015, Dileep and his first wife officially got divorced. It is said that the actress who was kidnapped in 2017, that actress had informed Dileep's first wife, Manju Warrior, that her husband was having an affair with another actress. Dileep was furious that she interfered in his personal life and exposed his affair. He didn't like that she was snitching on him. The truth eventually came out. He divorced Manju in 2015 and then, in 2018, married the same actress, Kavya Madhavan, whom the other actress had warned about. This is where the enmity began. And before that marriage, in 2017, Dileep allegedly took revenge by orchestrating the actress's kidnapping, having her sexually assaulted, and recording it on video, so that she could be blackmailed into staying silent, and then steps were taken to ensure that she would never get work in the film industry again. And in reality, she never did. This is the full story that eventually led to the formation of the committee. The committee was formed, and the report was finally released on August 19th. As soon as the report came out, one by one the masks started coming off. A well-known director from the Malayalam film industry was accused by an actress of sexual exploitation. Additionally, Siddiq, a prominent face in Malayalam cinema, was accused by another actress. She alleged that during an outdoor shoot while staying at a hotel, Siddiq raped her at night. As more and more actresses began coming forward, naming various individuals, pressure mounted on the Kerala government. In response, the Kerala government formed a special investigative team, SIT, and ordered a full inquiry and FIRS to be filed. An FR was registered against Siddiq. However, Siddiq claimed that all the allegations were nonsense and part of an attempt to defame the film industry. But along with that, fingers also started pointing at the Malayalam film industry's main association. And the finger was pointed at the Malayalam Movie Artists Association. Its president was none other than one of the finest actors, not just in Malayalam, but in the entire Indian film industry, Mohanlal. He too resigned, saying that many disturbing things were coming out about the industry. He said that if we can't do anything about it, then we have no right to remain in this association. So now there's a wave of resignations, and along with that, a flood of FIRS. One by one, names are being exposed, but the question is, what exactly was written in the report? Out of the 251 pages in the HEMA committee report, 17 major points were highlighted, but I'll share just some of them. Points that are truly eye-opening and expose the filth within the film industry. When interviews were conducted with over 80 women from the film industry, most of them shared one common thing. The first point: whenever a new female newcomer enters the Malayalam film industry to work, whether it's with a director, producer, casting director, or production house, after the initial conversation, they're often asked one specific question, and that is, what's your entry code? Entry code, like a dirty password or a degrading term used in Malayalam films. That's what they call it. Any woman who comes to the industry aspiring to be a heroine or any kind of artist is rarely judged for her acting skills. Instead, more focus is placed on this one question. If we give you work and you have to compromise a little or adjust, are you okay with that? Now, those who come to make a name in the industry often face this situation. Since the woman is new and confused, they are told, look at the top heroines in the industry today. All of them compromised and adjusted in some way. That's how they became successful. This makes her think, if this is how it works, then maybe I should do it too. So the ones who agree to compromise are allowed in, and the ones who don't, the doors of the film industry are shut for them. And those who say during this so-called entry code phase that, yes, I can compromise or adjust a little, they are given a specific code. With that code, the actress can approach any actor, director, or producer in Mollywood and say, this is my portfolio. I want to work, the actress says. The person in charge looks at everything, her portfolio, her appearance, but then also looks at the code. When they see the code, they immediately understand that the girl is willing to adjust or compromise. And that's when the exploitation begins. So, over 80 women from the film industry who gave their statements to the HEMA committee said the same thing. The very first step is this code. If you get this code, it's almost a guarantee you'll get work. But if you refuse to compromise or adjust, you won't be given the code. And when you approach someone for work and they see you don't have the code, the door is shut in your face. That was the first and most dangerous truth. The second truth is this. All the actresses and junior artists who spoke to the HEMA committee said the time they felt most unsafe working in this industry was during outdoor shoots. During these shoots, the stars and crew usually stay in hotels. They said, "Whenever we go for outdoor shoots, our biggest fear is what happens at night. As night falls, we hear sudden knocks on our hotel room doors, and that's when the real fear begins." And many times, the knock on the door would be so aggressive that it felt like someone was about to break it down and force their way in. And the people doing this weren't outsiders. They were the very ones involved in the film. The main lead, the second lead, the director, the producer. These were powerful people staying in the hotel. After wrapping up the shoot for the day, they would drink alcohol at night. And they knew exactly which room each actress or junior artist was staying in. They'd go directly to those rooms and knock, because they were sure the door would open since the girl had the code. And then they would sexually exploit them. Many actresses also told the HEMA committee that these stories frightened them so much that whenever they had to go for an outdoor shoot, they would bring a family member along, just so someone could stay with them in the hotel. If a family member was present, the crew knew she wasn't alone, and that presence often protected their dignity. However, whenever someone brought a family member along, those predators, those vultures, would get very upset. They would behave rudely on set because they knew they wouldn't be able to knock at night or get the door opened. This was the second disturbing truth. The third major and important point made by the committee was that many top stars who call themselves superstars have created fake fan clubs. Each star runs multiple fan clubs under their name, and they hire various companies to manage these clubs, paying them money. These clubs then heavily promote the stars on social media. So far, that might seem acceptable. But here's the darker side. If any actress dares to speak out against this kind of behavior, be it sexual harassment by a hero, director, or producer, then these same fan clubs launch a coordinated attack campaign against her. They defame her and try to ruin her image. As a result, she gets completely blacked out from the industry. So, these fan clubs are not just used for boosting the star's image, but also as weapons to silence voices that speak the truth. This was revealed by the committee. And when it comes to junior artists, the less said, the better. The report reveals that they are treated like slaves. Literally, nothing is arranged for them. No facilities, no support, just total exploitation on the film sets. Except for the top or lead actresses, most of the women working on these sets are treated in the worst way possible. One of the most horrifying things exposed in the report is that even basic necessities like washrooms are not provided for female staff, junior artists, or actresses. They are told to relieve themselves in the open. Now, how can someone go out in the open when they are surrounded by so many men around the sets? All around, male crew members are hovering, and the female staff are told they can't use the washroom because there isn't one for them. The fear is so deep that the women, knowing there's no toilet for them and that they aren't allowed to use the ones meant for lead actresses or vanity vans, end up doing something heartbreaking. They said, "We don't even drink water on set, even when we're thirsty, because if we drink water, we'll need to use the toilet. But there is no toilet. We'll have to relieve ourselves in the open, under the hungry eyes constantly watching us like vultures." It almost feels like that's what those people want, to force these women to go out in the open and then watch them with sick intentions. No one has ever arranged proper toilet facilities for them. And the biggest truth of all, without compromising, you have no place in Mollywood. This is what the committee's report revealed. Now you tell me, we all look at these glowing stars, heroes, heroines, and admire the glitz, the glamour, the story, the shooting. But behind it all, this is the dark and horrifying reality. So where is that shining world? It's nothing but a stained and disturbing curtain hiding ugly truths. What we see is glamour, but behind it, there's only darkness and filth. Mollywood is shaken to its core. So this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable. Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. The 90s era was coming to an end when a case occurred in India that caused a massive uproar across the nation. The reason was that the news was covered by both national and international media, and for an entire year, the case remained shrouded in mystery like a puzzle. There was immense pressure on the police and even on the Indian government to solve it. And when the case was finally resolved, what came to light was something that had never happened before. Many similar things happened later, but nothing like this had occurred before. This story is from 1997. In that year, a 25-year-old woman named Diana Claire Ruley, who was living in Auckland, New Zealand, came to India for a trip. Diana was studying in London at the time. Her father lived in Auckland, New Zealand, and was a government engineer. Diana was his youngest daughter. While studying in London, she also worked part-time, so money wasn't an issue. When her holidays began, she told her father that she wanted to visit India. She loved traveling, exploring different cultures and places. Her father agreed. In the first week of August 1997, Diana arrived in New Delhi from London. She stayed in Delhi for a day, then traveled to Agra to see the Taj Mahal. After visiting the Taj Mahal, her next destination was Varanasi. She wanted to see their culture. On August 7, 1997, Diana reached Varanasi. After arriving, she checked into a guest house, the old Vishnu guest house. She checked into that guest house and was given room number 103. Diana had a routine. Every night before going to bed, she would call her parents in New Zealand. Whenever her parents heard her voice, they felt at peace, knowing their daughter was safe. On August 7th, she explored nearby areas. She stayed there on August 8th and again on August 9th. August 10th was supposed to be her last day in Varanasi. She had a train booked for the morning of August 11th at 7 a.m. from Varanasi to Darjeeling, as she wanted to explore Darjeeling next. After visiting Darjeeling, she planned to go to Kolkata. On August 10th, she went out to explore and asked someone at the guest house where the nearest post office was. That was a time when mobile phones and other technologies weren't very common, so for ISD calls, one had to rely on landlines and related services. She had written a letter to her parents, sharing memories of her 8 to 10 days of travel across India, what she had seen, where she had been, who she met. She loved sharing every little detail of her journey with her parents. They had a very close and warm relationship, so she wrote down the story of her journey in a letter and posted it from Varanasi. On August 10th, she also spoke to her family for the last time. Her family knew that on August 11th, she had a train to Darjeeling in the morning. After that, night fell. Then came August 12th, and then August 13th. But Diana didn't call home. Ever since she had arrived in India, she had made it a routine to call her parents in New Zealand every night without fail to let them know she was safe. But now, 2 whole days had passed since she left Varanasi for Darjeeling, and there was no call from her. Her parents were now extremely worried. Her father, sitting thousands of kilometers away, didn't know what to do. But he did know exactly where she had stayed in Varanasi. Diana used to share every little detail. She even gave them the contact number of the guest house where she was staying and used the same phone line to call home. So her father called the guest house and asked if his daughter Diana had stayed there. They replied, yes, she stayed here from the 7th to the 10th and checked out on the 10th. They also knew she was supposed to leave on the morning of the 11th. But after that, the guest house staff said they had no further information. They were also surprised that a call had come all the way from New Zealand, inquiring about her. Her father then contacted the embassy. By this time, 4 to 5 days had already passed. He informed the New Zealand embassy, which then contacted the Indian government. The news reached senior police officials in Varanasi, and a search was initiated. But there were no leads, no trace of Diana. Time kept passing, and still there was no sign of her. Eventually, Diana's father flew to India himself to search for his daughter. By now, quite a few days had passed, and they still had no idea where their daughter was. Her father's name was Alan Jack. Alan Jack arrived in Delhi and then traveled to Varanasi, having already informed the embassy of everything. When he reached India, there were other family members still back home in New Zealand. He had come alone. While he was in Varanasi, he called home, and that's when the family told him they had received a letter from Diana. It was the one she had posted from Varanasi. So they called Mr. Alan Jack and informed him about the letter they had just received. In the letter, Diana described her entire journey so far. Along with that, she wrote one small but very important detail. She said that she was very happy in Varanasi, amazed by its culture, and felt fascinated by everything she saw. She also mentioned that the guide she had met there was very good. He had shown her the lanes of Banaras, the Ghats, and spoke fluent English. She even mentioned the name of the guide in the letter. His name was Dharmdev Yadav. As soon as her father learned this, he went to the guest house and asked, "Do you know anyone named Dharmdev Yadav?" And then some information came to light. At the same guest house where Diana had stayed, the guide Dharmdev Yadav was also connected. The staff mentioned that Dharmdev Yadav was their favorite guide. When asked why, they explained that there was no language barrier with him. He spoke fluent English. In the past, he had been a rickshaw driver for many years. Gradually, after driving rickshaws and taking foreign tourists, he realized that learning English would be more beneficial, so he decided to study it. He started learning English and soon spoke it fluently, able to handle any foreign tourist. After getting this information from the guest house, Diana's father confirmed that Dharmdev Yadav was the person she was last seen with, and she had even mentioned him in her letter. The case had now reached the embassy and the police. The police instructed that Dharmdev Yadav be called in for questioning. However, shockingly, it was discovered that Dharmdev Yadav had also disappeared on the same day, August 11th, 1997, the day Diana checked out of the guest house. He was simply gone. This struck the police as very strange, disappearing on the same day as Diana. It also raised the possibility that maybe Diana had liked the guide so much that she asked him to accompany her as a guide to other places. Maybe he even went with her to Darjeeling. Then there was also the plan to visit Nepal. So the police sent a team toward Nepal, and another search was carried out in Darjeeling. Diana's father personally traveled to Darjeeling and then to Nepal, but no trace was found. What was truly puzzling was that if she had gone with the guide willingly, why did she suddenly stop calling or writing to her father and family? She had never skipped a single day before. That's what made everyone uneasy. Was something wrong? Meanwhile, the police were searching for Dharmdev Yadav, but the guest house staff didn't even know where he lived. He had just started working there like many others who come to live in Varanasi, and no one had really asked much about his background. Now the police were facing a serious problem. Dharmdev Yadav had vanished. The search continued, and slowly, the year turned from 1997 to 1998. Diana was last seen checking out of the guest house on August 11th, 1997. Now it was August 1998. A full year had passed. In that time, her father had made 3 or 4 trips to India, each time leaving empty-handed. The police had investigated. The embassy had been involved, but no clue had been found. Time kept passing, and hope was slowly fading. Then, suddenly, on August 18th, 1998, 1 year later, the officer in charge of the police station near the guest house in Varanasi received a tip from an informant. The informant said, "Sir, the Dharmdev Yadav we've been looking for was spotted at the railway station in Banaras." A police team rushed to the station immediately. They searched the area and eventually they found Dharmdev Yadav. Some staff members from the guest house had gone along with the police and were able to identify him on the spot. The police quickly detained him. At first, Dharmdev tried to make excuses and avoid giving answers, but the police were suspicious. This man had been missing and on the run for a whole year. Something was definitely wrong. They noticed he was wearing decent clothes and appeared well-kept, which didn't match someone who was supposedly hiding in fear. So the police got tough with him. Under pressure, he finally broke down and told his story. After hearing his story, he replied, "If you want to know about Diana, you'll have to come to my house." His house was located about 9 kilometers from the guest house where Diana had stayed. Near Varanasi, there's a village called Vrindavan. This Vrindavan is close to Varanasi. The police team arrived in the village and was shocked to see Dharmdev Yadav's house. It was a large, well-built 7-room house. They were stunned. A guide who was once a rickshaw puller. How did he afford this? They learned from locals that he used to tell people a story. Once, a foreign tourist, whom he claimed was his girlfriend, was so happy with his service that before leaving, she gave him a reward of $8,000. That's the story he told everyone, and with that money, he built this entire house. He had a wife and a small son. His first wife had mysteriously died. No one knew how. He had remarried, and the second wife had a 3-year-old child. The police team reached his village, Vrindavan. When they got there, the house was locked. He took out the key and opened the door. Inside were 7 rooms. He walked them through each room one by one. Then, outside one specific room, he stopped and said, "Let's go into this one." They entered the room with him. There was a bed, and the entire floor, ceiling, and walls were neatly plastered and finished. Dharmdev looked at the bed and said to the officers, "Please move this bed." The police told him, "You help move it too." So together they shifted the bed out of the room. Then he pointed to the exact spot and said, "Start digging right here." While all this was happening, his wife had already arrived. Since Dharmdev had been arrested the day before, word had reached her. She had come with their child. Seeing the police and the crowd, she was nervous. She entered the house. The room where this digging was happening, the one where the bed had been, was the same room where she and her son had been sleeping for the past year. His wife still had no idea what was going on. She kept asking, "Why are you removing the bed from my bedroom? Why are you digging up the floor?" But no one gave her an answer. Slowly the digging began. As the digging got deeper, the police, along with the wife, stood watching. Suddenly, a skeleton appeared from beneath the ground. When it was pulled out, the wife was still standing nearby. Darmdev Yadav pointed to the remains and said, "Sir, this is Diana. On August 13th, 1997, 2 days after she went missing, I strangled her in this very room. Then I dug a pit right here, buried her, plastered over it, and placed a bed on top, so no one would ever suspect anything. But I always had guilt in my heart. That's why I changed my bedroom and started sleeping in this room with my son." As soon as his wife heard this, she fainted and collapsed on the floor. It took her nearly half an hour to regain consciousness. When she woke up, she started screaming, saying, "For an entire year I've been sleeping on top of a corpse. My son has been sleeping here too, and I had no idea." She began feeling disgusted with herself, filled with a deep sense of horror and fear. The skeletal remains were collected and sent to the hospital. The New Zealand authorities were informed, though they had already been notified a day earlier when Darmdev Yadav had been arrested. Mr. Alan Jack flew once again from New Zealand to Varanasi. After arriving, he met Darmdev and asked, "Why did you kill my daughter?" Darmdev told the full story. He said, "I showed Diana around Varanasi for 3 days. We became so close that whenever she ate, whether lunch or dinner, or we were out during the day, she would make me sit at her table and eat with her. She never treated me differently. Never made me feel like I was just a guide or beneath her or poor. She treated me with respect like an equal, and I showed her around with full sincerity." On the morning of August 11th, she was supposed to leave for Darjeeling at 7 a.m. Only I knew that detail. Over the 3 or 4 days we spent together, I also learned that Diana was carrying around $6,000, $7,000 in cash. She had a decent amount of money. During those days, I also realized that she wanted to stay longer in India. She had told me, "I want to see the real India." You must have seen in films. Real India often means poverty, poor neighborhoods, slums, hunger. Foreigners are often fascinated by that side of the country. That's when the idea struck me. I said, "If you want to see the real India, come to my village with me." She replied, "But I have to go to Darjeeling." I told her, "You can go to Darjeeling later. Why spend extra money traveling back and forth? I can reschedule your ticket through a local agent I know. You won't lose any money. We'll just move your travel by a day or 2. Diana agreed, and that became the biggest mistake of her life. Instead of taking her to Darjeeling, I brought her to my village, to that 7-room house. My wife and son weren't there. They had gone to her parents' home. I had 3 friends with me. On the first day, everything was fine. I showed her around the village. Then came August 12th. That day also passed peacefully. I showed her more of the village. But then came August 13th. That night, the 3 of us, me and my friends, were drinking local alcohol. We got drunk. And then a wicked thought crept in. All 3 of us tried to force ourselves on Diana, but she was a brave girl. She tried to defend herself and then started screaming. She also threatened, "I will go to the police." That threat scared all of them. The 4 men panicked, and to silence her, they began strangling her, especially Darmdev Yadav. During the struggle, Diana died. After her death, the men were terrified, but instead of stopping, they continued drinking through the night. The next morning, Darmdev called a mason and a laborer to one of the rooms in the house that wasn't being used. He told them to dig a pit in the floor. Once they finished, he paid them and sent them away. That night, after more drinking, they placed Diana's body in the pit. The following day, Darmdev called the same laborer again and had the floor plastered over. After it was sealed, he moved a bed from his bedroom into that room, laid a mattress on top, and began using it as his bedroom again. All his friends left, and then he called his wife and son back home. So, for the next full year, he slept in that very room. with his wife and child, on top of the buried corpse, without anyone suspecting a thing. When the full story came out, the case went to court. In 2002, the lower court gave its verdict. Tarmdev Yadav was sentenced to death. The other three did not receive the same punishment due to a lack of solid evidence proving they helped strangle Diana. They were given lighter sentences. The verdict was challenged in the Allahabad High Court. The High Court upheld the decision, confirming that Tarmdev Yadav had lured and killed a foreign tourist and sentenced him to death again, backing the lower court's ruling. He then appealed to the Supreme Court. The case continued there for several years. Finally, on April 11, 2014, 16 years after the incident, the Supreme Court gave its decision. The court said that there were no direct eyewitnesses in the case. Everything was based on circumstantial evidence. The skeleton found in the house had been DNA matched with Mr. Alan Jack, Diana's father, confirming it was indeed Diana. But there were no witnesses to Diana being taken to the village, to her murder, or to her burial. So, while the circumstantial evidence strongly pointed to Tarmdev, the court concluded that this did not qualify as a rarest of rare case under Indian law, which is required for the death penalty. Therefore, the death sentence was not upheld. Therefore, the Supreme Court changed the verdicts of the lower court and the High Court, reducing Tarmdev Yadav's sentence to 20 years in 2014. By that time, Tarmdev had already served 16 years in jail, and with the addition of 4 more years, he completed his 20-year sentence. In 2019, he was released from jail. After his release, his whereabouts remain unknown, but it's possible that he is still somewhere, living under a different name and face, blending into the population. This case highlights some of the flaws in India's judicial system. A girl who came to India to travel, only to mysteriously disappear, then be murdered. This entire story was covered in the New Zealand newspapers. Alan, her father, had traveled from New Zealand to Varanasi for the trial, hoping that Tarmdev Yadav would receive the harshest punishment possible under the law. When the death sentence was handed down, Alan was overjoyed. He said, "If they hang him, I won't regret it." He spent nearly $100,000, his entire savings, on his daughter's case. But what happened? The Supreme Court reduced the killer's sentence to just 20 years, and after serving that, he was set free. Now he walks freely, likely living under a different identity, if he's still alive. This was the reality of the case. So, this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable. Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. It is said that DNA is something that can never lie or deceive. DNA is the key that can solve even the most complicated unsolved cases. In fact, in the US, a 50-year-old cold case was solved solely because of DNA technology. DNA is the one thing that helps solve many cases, and it often becomes the most powerful weapon in getting someone convicted. But what if I told you that the same DNA can deceive? That because of a DNA report, the police let the killer go, never even reached the killer, and the identity of the victim remains unknown? What would you say then? And not just once, but twice. DNA deceives. Can DNA really mislead us? It's a strange thing because it shouldn't be possible. Every person born on this earth has a unique DNA. No two people have the same, so it can't just match someone else's. Today's story is an incredible police investigation. We often complain about the police, but there are some officers who truly use their brains to solve a case. In Madhya Pradesh, there's a place called Damo. In this area, in 2023, there lived a family consisting of a husband, wife, and their son. The son's name was Jairaj. Jairaj was in the 10th grade. The parents were well off. The father owned property worth millions, land, flats, and other assets. On the evening of March 28, 2023, Jairaj went out to play in his village where he lived. But after going out to play, he never returned home. Evening turned to night and his family grew worried. He didn't come back all night. This happened on March 28, 2023. They searched everywhere but couldn't find him, not even with his friends. On March 29, 2023, the family, now very worried, went to the police station and filed a missing person report for their son. The police took the report and began the search. When 2 or 3 days pass without any trace of him, the family begins to suspect that he might have been kidnapped, but they don't receive any ransom call. The police register a kidnapping case and begin their investigation. Days go by, but there is still no clue about Jairaj. During this time, the parents make their own efforts. They announce a reward of 500K, saying that anyone who provides information or a lead about their son will be given 500K in cash. But even that doesn't help. After March 28th, the entire month of April passes with no sign of Jairaj. May arrives, and still no trace of him. And then comes the date, May 14. That means Jairaj had been missing since around March 28th, more than a month and a half. On that day, in a field in Damo, some people passing by notice a skeleton. They inform the police. The police arrive at the scene. Now, a skeleton is found, and Jairaj is still missing. The police begin to suspect, what if this skeleton is his? Some clothes and a belt are also found near the skeleton, wrapped around it. The police immediately call Jairaj's parents and ask them to come to the scene. When the parents arrive and see the skeleton, they notice the torn shirt and pants wrapped around it. And when they see that belt, both parents break down in tears and say, "This is my son, Jairaj." The police now believe that Jairaj, who had been missing and was the subject of a kidnapping case, is dead. So they take the skeleton into their custody. The family pleads, asking the police to hand over the remains so they can perform the last rites of their only son. But the police are bound by procedure. Just the parents' identification and the presence of the belt and clothes are not enough for them to officially confirm that the skeleton belongs to Jairaj. Legally, it was necessary to confirm the identity, and that legal confirmation could only happen if the DNA from the skeleton matched the DNA samples of Jairaj's parents. So, blood samples were taken from the parents, and then both the skeleton and the parents' samples were sent to the forensic science lab. Until then, the police said they could not hand over the skeleton unless it was proven to be Jairaj's. When the samples reached the lab and the DNA report came back from the forensic lab, the results were shocking. It was that report. The parents didn't know how to react, whether to feel relieved or heartbroken, because the DNA report said that the skeleton was not Jairaj's. It belonged to someone else, as the DNA didn't match that of his parents. Now the police suspected that maybe there had been a mistake at the forensic science lab in a small place, and that further confirmation was needed. Meanwhile, the parents were pleading, saying, "Catch our son's killer." A skeleton had been found, but the police couldn't even confirm if it was their son's. The grieving parents were wandering from place to place, seeking answers. The police then said, "Let's do one thing." This time, instead of sending the DNA samples to same lab, the samples were sent to some of the country's most renowned forensic laboratories, one of them being the Chandigarh Forensic Lab, which is among the most reputed labs in India. So, after the initial testing in previous lab, the Damo police sent the blood samples of the parents, along with the skeleton samples, to the Chandigarh Forensic Lab, hoping that this time the matter would be definitively resolved. While they waited for the results, the parents continued to plead with the authorities to catch their son's killer. Some time passed and the DNA report finally came from the Chandigarh Forensic Science Lab to the Damo police. Coincidentally, the result was the same as the one from the previous forensic lab. That is, the skeleton was not Jairaj's. It belonged to someone else because the DNA did not match his parents. Now, the police were confused about what to do next. Meanwhile, the parents insisted, saying, "Do one thing. Give us our son's belt and clothes. We know they're his. I bought them for him," the father said. "And they're still lying in your custody. He was our only son. At the very least, please give us his remains. You already have the samples, so that we can perform his last rites and finally find peace, and so that our son's soul can also be at peace," they said. But the police kept refusing, saying, "How can we hand over the skeleton when the identity is still not confirmed? And if it's not Jairaj, then whose is it? We need to find that out." 2 separate DNA tests had already been done. Meanwhile, the family continued putting pressure on the police, but they couldn't reach a conclusion about what to do. During this time, the SHO of the police station and the SP in charge were transferred. New officers were posted there, and once they arrived, their attention turned to this case. They studied the entire case thoroughly. After reviewing it, they realized that the parents are not wrong. If the belt had belonged to someone else, it wouldn't have been stuck to or embedded in the skeleton like that, especially since the skeleton was over a month and a half old. Even the pieces of clothing weren't the kind that someone could have brought and placed there afterward. Now, the question was, at the time of death, if it was murder, were the clothes and belt put on after the killing? And secondly, what came out through the initial judgment based on the DNA? It was also discovered that the age of the deceased was approximately between 15 to 18 years. Jairaj was also in that same age range. All these factors were matching. So, after thoroughly studying the entire case, they questioned why the DNA wasn't matching. They said, "Let's do some more questioning." Until now, no one had thought of this, because DNA either matches or it doesn't. It should confirm whether the child belongs to the parents or not. Then, when this thought struck them, they went back to the parents and questioned them again. They asked, "Tell us, why is the DNA sample not matching? Even from 2 places, the Sagar Forensic Lab and the Chandigarh Lab. The DNA didn't match, and yet you're claiming he's your son. So what could be the reason for this?" They asked. "Okay, tell us, when and where was he born?" Their minds were racing with all sorts of possibilities. Could it be that the baby was born in a hospital and there was a mix-up? This has happened before in hospitals in some countries. The police started thinking along those lines, suspecting something was off. Because they also truly believed that the parents were telling the truth, and they also believed that the skeleton was Jairaj's. But the DNA didn't match. So what was the reason? So when they asked this question, no police officer had thought to ask before. They realized it had never even come up. They asked, when was he born? Where was he born? That's when the parents shared a piece of information they had never revealed before. They said, "Actually, we had been married for a long time but couldn't have children. We prayed at many places, tried everything, but nothing worked. Then someone told us about a new technology in science called IVF, or test tube baby. With IVF, either by using someone else's sperm or one from the parents, a child can be conceived," they said. "We went to an IVF center in Indore, where they did all the necessary checkups. And then, in 2009, through the test tube technique, we had a son. That's Jairaj." In other words, Jairaj was not born from his mother's womb in the natural way. He was a test tube baby conceived through IVF. When this fact came to light, the police officer was stunned and realized this might be why the DNA isn't matching. Then, on their own level, The police obtained the address of that IVF center in Indore and went there. They explained the entire situation and asked, "A child was born through IVF at your center in 2009. Can you tell us the name of the sperm donor?" Now, IVF centers across the country follow very strict regulations. One of the main rules is that they will never disclose the identity of the donor under any circumstances. There are many sensitive reasons for this. What if the child finds out later who their biological father is? It could cause serious emotional complications. So in a way, that policy is understandable. The IVF center firmly refused, politely saying that they are bound by legal and ethical guidelines and therefore cannot disclose the donor's identity. But it was now confirmed that Jayraj was a test tube baby born through IVF, and that was the reason his DNA didn't match his parents'. Then the police officer began to wonder, if Jayraj was indeed born through IVF and raised by this family all these years, is there still a way to confirm that he truly lived with them and was their son in every sense, even if not genetically? Because, as I said in the beginning, there has to be someone's DNA, but since the IVF center refused to share it, the sample wasn't available, and no one could say whose biological son he was. Even the parents didn't know who the donor was. But now, the goal was to prove that this boy, Jayraj, had been living with this family since childhood, since 2009. And if that was true, then surely there must be some scientific or technological way to establish that, yes, this is indeed the same Jayraj who lived in that house for 15 years. So the police officer began reading and researching. He was an SP who used his brain and started studying the subject in depth. As he read more, he came across information about how DNA from IVF cases can be traced and identified. During his research, he came across a book by an American forensic expert. The book was written as a detailed case study and was titled DNA Test in Criminal Investigation, Trial and Paternity Disputes, Justice Through Science. When he read that book, now, using the methods described in that book, he wrote a letter and sent it to the concerned local police station handling the case. He instructed them to follow certain steps, saying, "If you do this, the matter will be clarified." But the local police station didn't take much action. By then, the SP officer who had been handling the case was transferred elsewhere. Meanwhile, the skeleton was still lying in the police station, and no conclusion had been reached. Frustrated, the parents went directly to the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh. Before that, they also went to the High Court and filed a writ petition, stating that they still had no confirmation about their son's identity through DNA, nor had the police handed over the skeleton for final rites. So first they went to court, then to the Chief Minister. Finally, the High Court gave an order that regardless of the sample situation, the skeleton must be handed over to the parents so they could perform the last rites. For the first time after going to the High Court, an order was issued to balance the ongoing investigation with the emotional rights of the grieving parents. So, finally, the court ordered the police to hand over the skeleton to the parents. After Jayraj had gone missing, and after 13 long months on May 12, 2024, following the court's directive, the police handed over the skeleton to his parents. On May 12, 2024, the parents performed his last rites. That means the skeleton had been lying in police custody for a total of 13 months. After the cremation, the parents, who had already met the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, shared their entire ordeal with the new CM. Upon hearing everything, the Chief Minister's office sent strict instructions to the police via the DGP, asking, "What is this mess? Why has this case been handled so poorly? Solve it properly and find out the truth." Now, the SP who had studied the case earlier had already explained what kind of technique could help uncover the truth. With this fresh directive from the CM's office, the police were shaken. They decided to reopen and reinvestigate the case. They followed the method suggested by former SP. He had said, Go to Jairaj's home and collect everything that belonged to him since childhood, anything that could hold his traces. This included his school ID cards, books, and even toys he played with when he was little. They even collected his toys. All these items were gathered. Once collected, everything was sent to the forensic lab in Chandigarh with the instruction that there must be some biological traces left on these things, like sweat, saliva, hair, or pieces of nails, maybe stuck inside the bag or on other objects. The lab was told to extract DNA from those traces and compare it with the DNA from the skeleton, which hadn't matched the parents. So the idea was to match the DNA from the skeleton with whatever DNA they could retrieve from Jairaj's personal belongings. His bag, toys, nails, hair, whistle, or saliva. These items could contain biological evidence stored unintentionally over time. When all the collected items were examined in the forensic lab, they found samples, some nail fragments, strands of hair, and even sweat droplets that had dried into the fabric. Saliva traces were also found. All of these were tested and compared with the DNA sample from the skeleton. The result? Everything matched. This confirmed that the skeleton was indeed Jairaj's, because all those personal belongings belonged to Jairaj, and the DNA on them matched the skeleton exactly. That's why all of Jairaj's belongings and personal traces were found, and those traces matched the skeleton. So now there was no room left for doubt about whose skeleton it was. Once the DNA from the items matched, it became clear. The two previous DNA tests had failed only because Jairaj was a test tube baby, so his DNA couldn't match that of his parents. But his personal belongings, his toys, whistle, shoes, socks, and school bag, contained biological traces from his body, and they matched the skeleton exactly. Now that it was confirmed the skeleton was Jairaj's, one big question remained. Who killed Jairaj? The police began their investigation in that direction, as his identity was now confirmed. During the investigation, police found out that Jairaj was last seen with his cousin, his uncle's son. When the police questioned the cousin, he said that they used to play together often, and that he was teaching Jairaj how to ride a bike that day. Then the police spoke to Jairaj's father, Laxman, who revealed a new angle to the story. He explained that he owned a large amount of land and property. For many years after marriage, he and his wife had no children. He had a stepbrother named Dashrath, who had a son named Manvendra, Jairaj's cousin. There had been frequent arguments over the property, with Dashrath saying, "You two don't have any children, so give the property to my son, Manvendra." Laxman agreed at the time, and both sides assumed that since Laxman had no heirs, Manvendra would inherit everything. But deep down, Laxman and his wife still longed to become parents. That desire led them to Indore, where they tried IVF. After several attempts, they succeeded, and in 2009, Jairaj was born. When Jairaj was born, Dashrath and Manvendra realized that Laxman now had a legal heir. But they waited, thinking, let's see if this test tube baby even survives. As time went on, Jairaj grew up happy and healthy, and his parents loved him deeply. Slowly, as he grew older, Dashrath and Manvendra began to worry. If Jairaj became an adult, all the property would legally go to him, and they would get nothing. So they decided to kill him before he turned 18. And finally, on March 28th, under the pretense of taking him out for a ride, Manvendra took Jairaj along and strangled him to death. So this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable. Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another real story with you. There's one Indian film that inspired countless criminals within the country to try copying its plot to cover up their crimes. It was a brilliant film with an outstanding story and exceptional acting. The first part of this film was a super hit when it was released. Later, a part 2 was made, and that too became a massive hit. The central theme of this film revolves around a murder case where the killer commits a murder and then hides the body, cleverly misleading the law and the police, and continues to escape punishment. Every criminal, every murderer, dreams of doing the same, to commit the crime in such a way that the police can't catch them and they can cover up their crime to avoid punishment. But things rarely work out that way. However, today I'm going to tell you the story of a man who not only copied part 1 of that film, but went on to fully imitate part 2 as well. What was shown in part 1 of the film, and then in part 2, this person copied both of those things exactly to cover up his crime. His thinking, his clever mind, completely confused the Bengaluru police. It's a strange story that begins on August 12th, 2024, near Bengaluru, when a couple, a husband and wife, walk into a police station. There, they file a report. The report says that the wife from the couple tells the police, "I have a friend, and that friend's name is Lalita. Lalita has been missing for the past 24 hours. But we're not just suspicious, we're certain that Lalita has been murdered, and the killer is none other than her own husband, Umesh." The police gather all the information and say, "All right, please file a formal complaint." The police register, and after that, they go straight to Lalita's husband, Umesh, and begin questioning him. They ask, "When did you marry your wife?" And that's when the whole story starts to unfold. It's revealed that Lalita and Umesh met 5 years ago, and eventually they fell in love. After falling in love, the two decided to get married. They got married and even had a young son. Lalita was a beautician and Umesh worked at a travel agency. They lived near Bengaluru. However, over time, their relationship started to deteriorate, mainly due to suspicion. Umesh suspected that Lalita was having an affair with someone else, and Lalita felt the same about Umesh. Because of this, for the past 2 years, the husband and wife had been living separately, although both still lived in the same city, Bengaluru. Everything was going on relatively fine until recently, when Lalita made a new decision. She had decided that she would divorce Umesh and, after the divorce, live with her son. But Umesh didn't want Lalita to divorce him. So even though they were living separately, the matter of divorce was still ongoing. Then, on August 11th, Lalita goes to her friend and says, "I just got a call from Umesh. He wants to talk about the divorce and other things. He's saying we should meet once and discuss everything, so maybe we can settle things outside of court. So, come with me at the time and place he mentioned, and we'll sit and talk." Lalita then tells her friend, "Look, I am going. But I'm feeling uneasy," she says. "I don't know what's going on in Umesh's mind. I'm scared, but I also need to end all of this once and for all. So please give me your scooter. I'll go on it and return it to you in the evening." Lalita's friend gives her the scooter, but also says, "Look, I'm going to share my live location with you because honestly, I don't trust Umesh. If I don't come back, inform the police." Lalita then shares her live location with her friend, and after that she leaves. The live location shows that she's headed toward a forested area about 60 kilometers from Bengaluru. The location stops moving once she reaches there. Along the way, Lalita spoke to her friend once or twice, saying, "I'm almost there." But then, at exactly 6:11 p.m. in the evening, her phone switches off. Up until that moment, they had been talking. Now, her friend starts getting worried Lalita had reached the location but her phone was off. At first, she thinks maybe the battery died, or perhaps there's no network in that area. Still, she waits but keeps remembering that Lalita had said, "I don't trust my husband." Evening turns into night, but Lalita doesn't return, not even to return the scooter. Late at night, suddenly, Umesh shows up at the house of Lalita's friend, the same friend from whom she had taken the scooter. He arrives on that very same scooter and gives it back to her. The friend asks, "Where is my friend Lalita?" Umesh replies, "I dropped her off at the bus stop. She probably went home." Meanwhile, Lalita's phone remains switched off, and before leaving, she had already expressed her suspicion. Now, her friend grows even more doubtful. She talks to her husband, who suggests, "Let's wait through the night and see." Morning comes, still no trace of Lalita. Her phone is off and she hasn't returned to her home either. Now the friend feels something is definitely wrong, and on August 12, 2024, she goes to the police station and files a missing report for her friend Lalita. She tells the police everything, that Lalita had shared her live location, the exact time of the last call, and how her phone went off after that. The police then pick up Umesh for questioning. He repeats the same story. "I went to talk about the divorce. Then I dropped her at the bus stop and came back. I don't know where she went after that." But the police were suspicious because they had access to the live location data. The police said, "Let's go to the location from the live tracking." And they took Umesh with them to the last place where the live location had stopped the one her friend had received. When they reached there, they saw that the area was surrounded by dense forest and nothing else. It was a thick, remote jungle. The police started wondering, why did the live location stop in such a far-off forested area? What could be the reason? Then they began questioning Umesh more seriously. Under pressure, Umesh finally broke down. He started telling the story, saying, "My wife was going to divorce me. There were so many things going on. I had to pay compensation and other money in court, and maybe I wouldn't even be allowed to see my son anymore. That's why I first called her to talk things through. I took her with me, and once we reached there, I found out that she had shared her live location with her friend. After reaching the spot, I tried to talk to her, but the conversation didn't go well. I got angry, grabbed her by the neck, and killed her. After the murder, I dug a pit right there in the forest, buried her body, and came back thinking no one would ever find out." Now that Umesh had confessed everything, the police thought, at least one case is solved. At the location Umesh mentioned, the police dug up the ground and recovered Lalita's body. Since it was found within 24 hours, identifying her wasn't difficult. After questioning Umesh in police custody, preparations were being made to send him to jail. But just then, after hearing the entire story, a question came to the mind of the local inspector. The question was, if Umesh really wanted to kill Lalita, then why did he take her so far? The area in Bengaluru where both he and Lalita lived was already isolated, a quiet spot with bushes, little traffic, and not many people around. Why did he have to go 60 kilometers away to kill his wife? That part seemed very odd. The inspector even asked him, "You could have killed her anywhere, buried her anywhere. Why take her so far, near that forest?" Umesh kept insisting, "There was no one around there. I didn't take her there with the intention of killing her. I just wanted to talk. When the conversation didn't go well, I got angry and killed her. Since the place was deserted, I buried her there." But the police weren't convinced by his answer. They felt like he was hiding something, and that question kept circling in the inspector's mind over and over again. A killer who sets out with the intention to murder usually tries to do it quickly to kill, get rid of the body, and escape as fast as possible. But in this case, he traveled a full 60 kilometers and only then killed his wife. There's definitely some mystery or secret hidden in that 60-kilometer journey, but what it is, the inspector still doesn't know. Umesh was in police custody at the time, and since the police had official custody of him, they decided to interrogate him in more detail. The proper police methods were applied even though he had already confessed to the murder. At this point, the police didn't really need anything more. They had recovered the body based on Umesh's own directions, and everything seemed to be in place. But something still didn't sit right with them. That 60-kilometer distance there seemed to be a hidden story behind it. So the police started questioning Umesh again, focusing specifically on that 60-kilometer journey. They kept asking over and over, and finally they succeeded. After repeated questioning, a story came out, a secret that had been buried for the past 5 years, unknown to anyone. And when it was finally revealed, even the police were stunned. The story was this. When Umesh was in police custody and asked again and again, he finally said, "I have a friend named Kiran. We both grew up together in a village not too far from Bengaluru," Umesh said. "We were raised side by side, and even after I moved to the city, Kiran still lived there. But our friendship remained strong. One day I met Kiran and opened up to him. I told him about my family situation. I said, 'Man, I want to get rid of my wife. I want to kill her.' He said, 'All right. If you want to fool the police, here's what you do. Take her about 60 kilometers away from Bengaluru to a forest. Take her there, kill her, and bury the body. No one will ever find out.' So I did exactly what he said. Now the police began wondering, how did Kiran know that killing someone in that forest and burying the body would be safe? How was he so confident that the police would never find out? So they began questioning Umesh more. Eventually, he revealed the full story. Actually, 5 years ago, Kiran killed his own wife and buried her in that very same forest, and to this day the police never found out. When this shocking revelation came out, even the police were stunned. A man committed a murder 5 years ago, and no one has found out until now. How is that even possible? The police then go to the village and take Kiran into custody. Once he's detained, they begin questioning him. But since the case is 5 years old and no official complaint was ever filed, the police wonder what they can really do. So they start digging into Kiran's background and look into the story of his wife. That's when they find out that Kiran and his wife Pooja had a love marriage. They lived together and even had a child. But in 2019, one day, Pooja suddenly disappeared. Kiran told everyone in the village that she had run away with her lover. The entire village believed it, as did Kiran's in-laws, even her mother. Now, the police send a team to track down Pooja's mother. Meanwhile, Kiran has already been in police custody for 4 to 5 days, and strangely, not a single relative has come to check on him. The police find that odd. Eventually, the team reaches Pooja's mother. They ask her, "Where is your daughter Pooja?" She replies, "She ran away with her lover 5 years ago." They ask, "How do you know that?" She says, "Kiran told me." Kiran had told everyone that she ran away, but 5 years had passed and no one had ever tried to find her. The police asked her mother, "Did you ever try to look for her?" She replied, "My son-in-law said he filed a police report. He even showed me a copy of the complaint." After speaking to her in detail, the police felt they now had enough reason to dig deeper. They once again interrogated Kiran. He said, "Yes, my wife ran away and I filed a complaint at the local police station in my village. 2 of my friends went with me when I filed the report." So the police team went to that police station to verify the claim. Pooja had supposedly gone missing on May 1st, 2019. The police reviewed all the records from May 1st to May 10th and even beyond. But there was no missing complaint filed under the name Pooja, nothing at all. When the police confronted Kiran again, saying, "There's no record of any complaint," he insisted, "I went with my 2 friends to file it." He gave the names of the 2 friends. The police picked up those friends and questioned them, but both denied everything. They said, "We never even went to the police station. We were never with him. We don't know anything about any complaint." Now, the police were sure something was very wrong. He was lying. After that, the police confronted him with all the evidence. "You never filed any complaint. Both of your friends are denying your story. Umesh has already revealed that you advised him on how to commit a murder. Your mother-in-law also confirmed that you lied about filing a complaint. So now it's better for you to tell the truth." At this point, Kiran realized he was cornered. He finally confessed. The truth was that he didn't get along with his wife. She had certain habits and behavior he didn't like. Then one day, when he got the chance, he murdered her. This happened in May 2019. He took the body with him on a scooter. A little distance away from his house, there was a dense forest area. He went deep inside, dug a pit, and buried her body. Then he returned home and told everyone in the village that his wife had run off with her lover, leaving even her small child behind. In reality, Kieran had watched that movie around the same time. He knew that if you bury the body in a place where the police can never reach, then without a body there can be no murder case. So he buried her body. And on the other hand, he told everyone at his in-laws' place that his wife had run away. To convince them, he even wrote out a fake complaint on a piece of paper, stating that his wife had run off and that she should be searched for. He showed this complaint to his in-laws, especially his mother-in-law, saying, "Look, I filed this with the police," even though he never actually went to any police station. There was no official record of that complaint. He had buried his wife, but the place where he buried her, he would quietly visit that forest once every month just to check on the grave. Every month, he would silently go there, look around to make sure everything was in place, no grass had overgrown, nothing was disturbed. Then he'd smile to himself and leave. This routine continued all the way through to 2021. He had committed the murder in 2019, and by 2021 he was still making monthly visits to the burial site just to reassure himself that the body was still safely buried underground. Then something unexpected happened. In 2021, the Forest Department decided to carry out digging and development work in that very part of the forest where he had buried his wife. Their plan was to clear that dense area and build fencing around it. The reason was that wild elephants and other animals would often wander from the forest into nearby villages, causing chaos. So the department decided to cut some bushes and trees and create a barrier path to keep the wild animals from crossing over into human settlements. Since Kieran visited the forest every month, he noticed the changes and forest activity. In 2021, when he went there again, he suddenly saw a lot of movement. Forest department workers surveying the area, measuring land, planning where to set up fences and nets. He had no idea what was going on, so he innocently asked one of the workers, "Brother, what's happening here?" They told him, "We're setting up a fence so wild animals don't enter nearby villages." Coincidentally, the route for that fencing work went right through the area where Kieran had buried his wife's body. The ground was going to be dug up because they had to install metal mesh and poles into the soil. For the first time, Kieran became truly scared if they started digging, the body would be discovered. And once the body was found, he knew exactly what would happen next, a DNA test, forensic analysis, and he'd be caught. While all this was going on, the second part of that movie was released. In the first part, there's a murder, and a body is buried under a police station that is being built, and the movie ends there. In the second part, the plot continues with the fear that someday the skeleton might be discovered from beneath the police station. So the character digs it up, burns it, and buries it again somewhere else to cover the crime and avoids getting caught. Kieran had watched both parts of the film. Now the forest department was about to begin digging, and he feared that his wife's 2-year-old skeleton would be uncovered and his secret would be exposed. Because no matter how much a criminal tries to stay calm, deep down, there's always fear. He thought, before they dig it up, I have to do something myself. The entire plot of the film kept playing in his mind. One evening, as darkness fell, he went to the forest. The forest department workers weren't there yet since the digging hadn't officially begun. He reached the spot he knew exactly where the grave was. He started digging up the same place where he had buried his wife 2 years ago. After digging, he found the remains, a few teeth, some bones, part of the skeleton. He took all of it out. Then he walked a short distance into the forest. He had brought petrol with him. He burned the remains. since the bones and other parts wouldn't be completely reduced to ashes. He gathered whatever was left, the bones, teeth, and other skeletal pieces. Then he carried them to a farmhouse located near the edge of the forest. A lot of people build large farmhouses near such forest areas. Behind one such farmhouse, he dug another pit and buried the partially burned remains there. So basically, for 2 years, the body remained buried at one spot in the forest. When the forest department arrived to begin digging in 2021, he exhumed the remains, burned them, and then buried them again, this time at a different location. He literally followed the exact plot of that film in real life. After doing all this, he felt relieved and fearless. The forest work continued from 2021, the area was dug up, and everything was changed, but Kiran remained safe because there was nothing left to find. Then, in 2024, his friend Umesh got into a similar conflict with his own wife. When he sought advice, Kiran told him, "Here's what you do, go 60 kilometers outside the city to this forest, kill her there and bury her. No one will ever know. Has anyone ever found out about me till now?" Kiran was his closest friend, and that's where he made his mistake. He shared his secret. Umesh followed his advice, took Lalita to the forest, killed her, and buried her at the same type of spot. When the truth came out, a police team first visited the original burial site Kiran had mentioned, but the forest department had already cleared it. Then the team went to the second location, behind the farmhouse, as described by Kiran. They dug at the exact spot he indicated, and from there they recovered pieces of a skeleton, teeth, bones, and other remains. The Bengaluru police had brought a forensic team along, and all the evidence was carefully collected and sent to the forensic lab. The forensic remains, bones, teeth, and all are believed to be those of Pooja, Kiran's wife, who went missing in 2019. Following this, Pooja's mother filed an affair against Kiran, and now both Kiran and his friend Umesh are in jail together. So this was today's story. Thank you for joining us on this journey today. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable.